This is news analysis coming to you live on Politics and Business Television Abuja. Good afternoon and many thanks for joining us on the program for today. I'm Fatima Abubakar Oibo. The headlines. After another grid failure, NLC demands audit of power sector infrastructure. Police and INEC move against early campaigns as year 2027 draws closer. Resident doctors give federal government fresh 24-hour ultimatum. On the foreign scene, Obama condemns fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk. Details of the story and more to come shortly after the break. Do stay with us. The Nigerian Labour Congress has issued a strong call to the federal government, demanding a comprehensive audit of the nation's power sector infrastructure and a fundamental review of the privatization model. This follows a recent collapse of the national electricity grid, which plunged much of the country into darkness. In a statement signed by its president, Joe Ajero, the NLC condemned the continued investment of public funds into privatized entities, urging instead that the proposed 4 trillion naira be redirected towards a public-led initiative to expand generation capacity and overhaul transmission systems. The union declared the light must come on by any means necessary, warning that Nigerians will no longer tolerate what it described as a man-made crisis. The Nigerian Independent System Operator, NISO, confirmed that the grid disturbance occurred at 11:20 a.m. on September 10th, triggered by the tripping of a generation company facility. This led to a cascading failure across other gencos, reducing supply to a mere 20 megawatts as its lowest point. Restoration efforts began swiftly, with Abuja receiving initial supply from the Shiroro power plant. Meanwhile, electricity distribution companies across the country, including AEDC, Kano Disco, and Ikeja Electric, took to social media to inform customers of the outage and ongoing restoration efforts. Kano Disco urged residents to remain vigilant against vandalism during the blackout, while Ikeja Electric expressed regret over the complete loss of supply to all its feeders. As restoration continues, the spotlight remains on the federal government next, whether it will heed the NLC's call for a public-led revival of the power sector or persist with the current privatization framework. And as the race towards the 2027 general election gathers momentum, the Independent National Electoral Commission and the have warned political parties against embarking on early campaigns in violation of the electoral law. INEC Chairman Mahmoud Yakubu lamented that parties had already kicked off subtle campaigns despite clear provisions that restricted such activities to 150 days before the polls. The development has drawn sharp reactions across the political space, while former INEC boss Atahir Jega called for firm measures to curb the trend. The opposition People's Democratic Party and African Democratic Congress accused the ruling All Progressive Congress of being the worst offender. The APC, however, defended the Commission's position, even as the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, vowed to enforce the law against violators. INEC boss Professor Yakubu on Wednesday decried the increasing cases of early political campaigns across the country, labeling them a clear breach of Nigeria's electoral laws and a threat to democratic governance. He pledged to collaborate with the National Assembly and political stakeholders to amend the Electoral Act, granting INEC the power to sanction defaulters. Moving on now, the Association of Resident Doctors has issued the federal government a fresh 24-hour ultimatum to meet its outstanding demands for the expiration of its earlier 10-day deadline on September 10th. The decision followed a 6-hour meeting of the association's National Executive Council held virtually on Wednesday. The president of NARD, Dr. Tokbe Oshundara, said the association acknowledged the government's promise to address their concerns but insisted on immediate action. In a communique issued on September 4, 2025 and signed by NARD President Dr. Tokbe Oshundara, General Secretary Dr. Oluwashola Odumbakun, and Publicity and Social Secretary Dr. Omoha Amobi, the doctors demanded immediate payment of their outstanding 2025 Medical Residency Training Fund, settlement of 5 months arrears from the 25 to 35% consolidated medical salary structure review, and other long-standing salary backlogs. They also demanded the payment of the 2024 accoutrement allowance arrears, prompt disbursement of special allowances, and restoration of the recognition of the West African Postgraduate Membership Certificate by the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria. In addition, they called on the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria to issue membership certificates to all deserving candidates, implementing the 2024 Consolidated Medical Salary Structure, resolve outstanding welfare issues in Kaduna State, and address the plight of resident doctors at Ladoke Akintola University of Technology Teaching Hospital, Ogbomosho. You're still watching news analysis on Politics and Business Television. Still to come, CBN unveils payment system to secure financial ecosystem. Details of this headline and more news content. Stay with us. Welcome back. Moving on to business matters now. The Central Bank of Welcome back. Moving on to business matters now. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has launched a payment system for a more inclusive, innovative, and globally competitive digital financial system. At the inaugural meeting of the PSB 2028 Project Committee in Lagos, the Director of the Payment System Policy Department, PSPD, Musa Itopa Jimo, said the initiative tagged Payment System Vision 2028, PSB 2028, has the potential to transform how individuals, businesses, and governments interact within the financial ecosystem. Reflecting on the journey from the early reforms of 2006 through the milestones of the PSB 2020 and PSB 2025, Jimo explained that the new vision will build on past achievements to deepen financial inclusion, improve infrastructure, interoperability, and promote innovation across Nigeria's financial services sector. He observed that while Nigeria's payment system has made significant progress over the past 2 decades, the speed of technological advancement and innovation continues to grow. Jimo elucidated that PSB 2028 presents the country with a unique chance to develop a future-ready framework that is secure, efficient, and globally competitive. He explained that the framework will be developed through an inclusive, stakeholder-led process that unites regulators, banks, fintechs, payment service providers, consumer advocacy groups, and other key players. On the foreign scene, former United States President Barack Obama has condemned the fatal shooting of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. In a post via his official X handle on Wednesday, Obama described the act as a despicable violence and that has no place in a democratic society. The former U.S. leader also commiserated with the victim's wife and their 2 young children. Kirk, a right-wing activist and close ally of President Donald Trump, was fatally shot during an event in the western U.S. state of Utah on Wednesday. Kirk, the head of the largest conservative youth movement in the United States, which he co-founded in 2012 at the age of 18, was speaking around noon on the campus of Utah Valley University. Dressed in a white t-shirt with the word "Freedom" across the front, Kirk sat in a chair under a tent as he answered questions from the large audience gathered around him. The event was the first of about 15 scheduled across the country through the end of October. The 31-year-old collapsed and blood spurted from his neck, according to a video clip shot from a nearby location. Kirk was then rushed away on a stretcher by his security detail. Authorities have yet to arrest any suspects in Kirk's shooting. And now for sport news, let's join Arukotom.
Good day, I'm Arukotom. Let's dive into your latest P&B Sports update. Shooting Star Sports Club made headlines off the pitch this weekend, generating almost 7 million naira from ticket sales in their Southwest Derby clash. A total of 8,425 tickets were sold, showing the growing passion of local fans for the NPFL. While in international football, the CAF FIFA World Cup qualifiers are heating up and the Golden Boot race is wide open. Gabon's Dennis Boanga leads the charts with 8 goals, followed closely by Egypt's Mohamed Salah on 7. Several stars are tied with 6 goals each, including Ghana's Jordan Ayew, Algeria's Mohamed Amora, Mali's Cameron Douambia, and Kenya's Michael Olunga. With more qualifiers ahead, the battle for top scorer promises to be as intense as the fight for World Cup spots. Meanwhile, Manchester City have suffered a major setback ahead of the Manchester derby. Forward Omar Mamouche was spotted in a leg brace and on crutches after picking up a knee injury on international duty in Egypt. The 25-year-old, who has quickly become a fan favorite since joining in January, sustained the injury in a qualifier against Burkina Faso. I'm Arukotom, and that's your P&B Sports News. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, and on to the focus of the day. Just in, Nigeria's national grid has suffered yet another collapse. Power is out in at least 11 states, including Abuja, plunging millions into darkness. On our focus today, we turn our attention to Nigeria's persistent power crisis, and this latest incident is part of a worrying pattern. The national grid has now collapsed 3 times in 2025 alone. In January, in February, and now again in September. Each failure not only throws homes and businesses into darkness, it also raises serious questions about accountability in the power sector. Despite billions of naira spent on reforms and privatization in the power sector, Nigerians are still left in the dark, literally. So today we ask, why can't the country keep the lights on? And who should be held responsible for this recurring national embarrassment? The latest grid collapse is not just a technical failure, it's a reflection of deeper structural and policy challenges holding back economic growth and frustrating millions of households and businesses. Join us after the break for this mind-boggling discussion. Stay with us and don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Joining us today via WhatsApp call is Bode Fadikbe. He is a lead consultant at Sage Consulting. His forte lies in power sector policy analysis, advocacy, and end-user advisory. Mr. Fadikbe, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for having me. Good
So,
afternoon, viewers.
good afternoon. Let me start by asking, with the three, I beg your pardon, from your professional view, where does the blame lie for these repeated collapses? Is it poor infrastructure, weak regulation, or lack of political will?
I think it's all of them. But even much more than those three factors that you have identified as weak infrastructure, lack of political will, or weak regulation. We also have what I call the sociological factor, which translates into vandalism by members of the public for different reasons: economic sabotage, political inclination, insecurity, some kind of antisocial disposition and things like that. So there are quite a number of factors that trigger what happened yesterday, which has become part of our. It's already a cultural issue in the power sector, a traditional thing. It doesn't surprise us again. When there is a grid system collapse or disturbance or whatever name they want to call it, doesn't come as a surprise to us again. I remember that again during the year there was a grid system collapse in Spain also, and they set up a national committee to investigate. You can imagine the whole country like Spain setting up a national committee to investigate. Yes, this is something that takes place almost every day in our own country, and that's become it's a new normal. So for us, it's not a new thing. So it goes beyond those three factors that you have mentioned. It goes far, far beyond those three factors.
So every collapse, it comes at a cost. Can you help us understand the scale of economic and social damage this blackout inflicts on Nigerians and businesses?
I'm happy you captured it as an infliction on Nigerians and businesses.
Yes.
It comes at a cost, and you are perfectly right in capturing it that way. But let's look at those who are affected in this cost. One, the generating companies are affected. For what happened yesterday, we are not sure of. It was as a result of a power station, a generating station. And from all indications, it looks like that generating station is located in the southwest. I'm not too sure which of them. We have quite a number of them in the southwest. We have the one at Olorunshogo. In Ogun State, we have the one at Motosho in Ogun State, and then we have the one we have Egbe in Lagos State in the Ikobodu area. So I'm not very sure of the one that cost it. But in terms of cost, the power stations the generating stations are affected, because when grid system outage is going to happen, it goes gradually, and the machines are affected. They could lose a major part. That getting it will be very costly. So that's one. Businesses, I know that most businesses, that when they want to go into production, they don't stay on the public power supply because they don't have confidence in the public power supply. Because what happened yesterday could just happen again. And the cost of clearing their production line may even be more expensive than the electricity, than what they will use in generating electricity that is qualitative and quantitative, that can handle their production process, even if the production process is going to last for the whole day. For instance, take those who are in greenways, or take those who are in the steel industry, and they are in the process of melting their steel, and supply goes off. That process of melting the steel requires a continuous process that must not be broken. Otherwise, if it is broken and there is a little bit of cooling, it becomes solid and it can destroy the entire process. So they prefer to be on their own self-generated power that is reliable, that is qualitative, and that is of sufficient quantity. Because these are fundamental factors. Nigeria's electricity is dirty to some extent. Dirty in the sense that the quality is poor. I'm sure you would have heard of expressions like tomato candlelight, tomato light, and all of those things. It is pure. I mean, technically, it is called voltage collapse. So, and they are not useful enough. You know that at times in your house, even your phone line is better than what you are getting from the public power supply.
Exactly.
The voltage is so low that it's better to put it off so that you don't damage your eyes. Because it's terrible. So for the manufacturer, in medical, somebody could be on the operating table and the doctor is working, going through a serious surgical process, and supply goes off immediately. You can imagine what will be happening. Maybe a woman is in labor and they have to do a CS for her. Or somebody, there's an accident victim, or there's a gunshot victim that from whom they need to extract a bullet, maybe from the brain or from the heart. So you can see the cost. It's about quantified. You cannot put naira and kobo to it in real terms. You can measure to some extent, but you can't get the actual value of the cost of what happened yesterday and what had happened several times. So in terms of cost, it's usually very huge to the country, economically, socially, in every area. It is usually very the grid not be allowed to swing left and right like the British weather.
Yes. So, Mr. Fadipe, let's come back to the government, the government part. You know, quite often, successive governments have, promised reforms and investments and privatization. Why are these not translating into stable power supply?
Now, in the course of your initial, the first question that you asked, you talked about regulation, you talked about obsolescence of equipment, and then maybe one or two other factors. I think one other factor that you have just identified, and I'm happy that we have a journalist who has experience about the power sector, is government action. Look, there is nothing wrong with the policy of privatization itself, which government adopted as a roadmap leading to qualitative, quantitative, reliable, and stable power supply. It's not wrong in its own, on its own. It's a means to an end. But unfortunately, we have not. We may have left. I don't know whether we have left the terminals.
Yes.
I don't know that we have left, so I cannot even be talking of the distance we have covered. Because, privatization has run for about 12 years now. Since the time of Obasanjo. Even before Obasanjo, since the days of Ibrahim Babangida as the military president, we've been discussing privatization before we eventually had the courage to bring it to be during the time of Jonathan, when the assets were handed over. The 60% of the equity was given to private investors. But today, the things that drove the idea of privatization very much before the Jonathan period, none of them has been resolved. There is still metering. Metering is still a problem. Instability in the network is still a problem. Grid failure, constant grid failure is still a problem. Liquidity is still a problem. Vandalism is still a problem. All the problems that we started with, no one of them has been resolved conclusively. Since today that I'm talking to you, no one of them has been resolved. Tell me one of them that has been resolved conclusively. Even manpower problem, the quality of the manpower. Some people are of opinion, and you cannot doubt them, that we seem to even have more equipment in the sector than we have knowledge. So there is not one of them that has been resolved. And this is a critical factor. So if no one of them has been resolved, it means that the fundamental problem with the power sector is the people problem. It's the people. It is the knowledge level. It is the depth of the knowledge. Look, knowledge is life. I don't know which of the major religion you belong to, but one of them says that my people perish for lack of knowledge.
Yes.
Knowledge is life.
Yes, yes.
The knowledge quality, the knowledge depth in the power sector is a suspect. Another fundamental part of it is the political will. What is driving the decisions that are driving the power sector? What is driving it? What is at the back of our mind when we take a decision? I mean, on paper, it is always very beautiful to look at. We want to bring in 10 million pieces of meters so that we can account for the energy, so that we can recover.
I've loved to listen to you more and let us discuss this issue further, but because of time, we won't be able to discuss further. But very quickly, before we go, if you were advising policymakers right now, what urgent steps would you recommend to, stabilize the grid and ensure Nigerians get the electricity they deserve?
I think the knowledge of what to do is out there. It's a matter of whether we are willing to do it. So, what I will suggest immediately is let us develop the political will.
Yes.
Mr. President demonstrated the political will when on the 29th of May to 2023, he stood on the rostrum and said, subsidy is gone. It takes a lot of courage to do what he did.
Okay.
It takes a lot of courage. So we need to demonstrate a similar. See, Saban said something that I love. He said it will be tragic not to take a decision. It's better to take the wrong decision than not to take a decision at all. So let's take a decision. Let's take a decision.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much, Bode Fadikbe, the lead consultant at Sage Consulting. Thank you so much for joining us on this program this afternoon. We really appreciate your insightful thoughts on this, the national grid collapse. Thank you so much once again for joining us on News Analysis this afternoon. Okay, thank you so much. And that wraps up today's program. But before we go, the headlines again. After another grid failure, NLC demands the audit of power sector infrastructure. Please, INEC move against early campaigns as year 2027 draws closer. And resident doctors give federal government fresh 24-hour ultimatum. On the foreign scene, Obama condemns fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk. For more updates and in-depth analysis, follow Politics and Business TV.English on YouTube and Facebook. Connect with us on Instagram at P&B.TV.English and TikTok at P&B.TV.English. Remember to subscribe and stay informed. From me, Fatima Abubakar Oyibo, it's bye for now.